One of the strongest thoughts that has ever hit me, one that still shakes me to the bone, is this: what will happen at the end? Not what happens to my body, but what happens to me when I'm gone. And the strangest part is the feeling that you don't know, but sooner or later you will know. That thought gives you chills, real chills. Because most of us were trained to believe life is a short flash and then nothing, just darkness, just emptiness. But then there's a problem. There are people whose hearts stopped, people who clinically died and returned, and many of them report something that doesn't fit the nothingness story. They saw themselves from outside their body. They observed what doctors were doing. They later described details they could not have physically perceived. If even a fraction of this is true, then the most terrifying assumption collapses. Consciousness may not be confined to the body. And if consciousness survives physical death, then death, as we fear, it doesn't exist in the way we imagined. Some people describe an overwhelming peace, a release from pain. Others describe a blinding light. Others suddenly understand, I still exist. So how is that possible? What if consciousness isn't generated by the brain the way we were taught? What if the soul is real? And what if everything we think we know about ourselves is only a tiny fragment? For thousands of years, philosophers, mystics, and scientists have argued about this. Some insisted the soul is immortal. Others called it a mython illusion. But here's the turning point. What if the soul is not a myth, and even science is now accumulating evidence that forces the question back onto the table? Today, we're going to unpack it clearly. What the soul actually is, how it relates to spirit, how both relate to the absolute, and what this means for you personally right now in your life. Because this isn't a theoretical debate. It changes how you live. It changes your fear, your priorities, your freedom. There's a famous case where a patient told her doctor she had left her body during surgery and watched what was happening to it from above. Later, she described the people in the room, the entire procedure, and even specific medical tools she couldn't have seen from her position. One detail she recalled was almost absurdly precise. She described a surgical instrument that looked like an electric toothbrush, but she noticed it had a small dent in it. She also saw that it had interchangeable blades, which were stored in something that looked like a case for wrench tools. Now, the normal, materialist worldview says, that's impossible, because we're taught that you are your body. Your consciousness is just a product of the brain. And when the brain shuts down, so do you. End of story. But if that's true, why do so many people, deep inside, feel there's something more to us than that? Why do our dreams sometimes place us in vivid locations we've never visited? Why do we sometimes remember things we couldn't possibly know? Why does this sense of eternity live inside so many of us quietly, stubbornly, and unexplainably? Ancient teachers spoke about this for millennia. Plato famously said, the soul is immortal and the body is just a temporary shelter. The Buddha taught that the human being is trapped in illusions and has forgotten who they truly are. Mystical traditions from all over the world describe the human as a bridge between spirit and matter. What if all of that wasn't just poetry? What if it was memory? Now, modern science often says, there's no conclusive proof of the soul. And they're not wrong from a certain perspective. But the data pointing in that direction is piling up. Researchers have been studying near-death experiences for decades. Dr. Raymond Moody documented hundreds of cases where people had full cardiac arrest with no measurable brain function. Yet they reported vivid awareness, detailed observations, and crystal-clear memory of the event. Dr. Bruce Grayson analyzed thousands of cases and identified common patterns that appeared again and again. Traveling through a tunnel, encountering a brilliant light, meeting other beings, and experiencing an expanded sense of presence. These motifs repeat across completely different cultures and belief systems. And then there's the work of Dr. Ian Stevenson. He spent over 40 years documenting cases of children who recalled specific details from past lives' names, places, causes of death, even hidden family secrets. He compiled thousands of these cases, with hundreds of them being strongly verified. There are cases that just feel impossible, like a young child who had recurring nightmares of a plane crash. He'd be kicking and screaming in his sleep, yelling, "Plane, falling, fire." He described taking off from a ship. Later, the details he gave aligned perfectly with a real World War II pilot and a real incident. How could a child possibly know that? And yes, some early experiments to prove the soul went nowhere. You've probably heard of Duncan MacDougall's attempts to weigh the soul. It's a famous story, 21 grams, but later attempts to replicate his experiment failed, and science rightly remained skeptical. So here's the honest position. Not everything is proven the way physics proves gravity, but enough strange, unexplainable anomalies exist to justify asking a very serious question. What if consciousness isn't trapped inside the skull? And now we reach the part of the conversation that most people avoid, because the question isn't only, is there a soul? The deeper, more uncomfortable question is, what does believing in a soul do to you, and who benefits from you not believing in one? Think about it. If you believe you only have one short life, then death becomes the absolute end. And the idea of an absolute end creates absolute fear. Fear makes people manageable. Fear makes people accept things they would never accept if they felt eternal. Politics can use fear of enemies or collapse to control you. Organized religion can use fear of damnation and promises of salvation to control you. Corporations can use the fear of missing out and hunger for identity to drive endless consumption. A person who truly believes that their consciousness survives death doesn't panic in the same way. They don't obey in the same way. They don't sell their freedom as easily for a little bit of temporary security. And just look around at the world we've built. We produce more food, clothing, and goods than all of humanity needs. Yet millions suffer every day. Tons of food are thrown away. Mountains of clothing are destroyed. And brand new gadgets are designed to become obsolete in a year or while people starve, freeze, and live in deprivation. A tiny fraction of the population controls massive resources, creating artificial scarcity for everyone else. And the engine that keeps this entire system running is the same one: fear. The fear of losing everything. In an era of digital money and repeated cycles of economic crises, this fear only grows stronger. So the real cliffhanger at the end of this chapter is this: if consciousness isn't a product of the brain, if it existed before your birth and continues after your death, and if your body is just a temporary tool, then who are you, and why did you forget? We often say things like the soul is inside me, but if it's inside, why don't we feel it all the time? It's funny, our language is full of clues we can't quite explain. We say things from the heart, or do something with soul. We say, my soul isn't in it, or something feels heavy on my soul, or light on my soul. We talk as if something real is there, yet most of us live our lives as if it isn't. So why do we forget who we really are? And if the soul is meant to be light, why is the world so full of fear, loneliness, and pain? The answer is brutally simple: we forgot, or perhaps we were helped to forget. You are not your thoughts. You are not your body. You are not your story. Let's define some terms, because most of the confusion comes from mixing them up. In many traditions, the soul is seen as the individual traveler, the part of you that accumulates experiences throughout life. The Vedas call it Atman, something not dependent on the body. In Christianity, the soul is immortal, yet a person can lose it spiritually. This doesn't mean it vanishes. It means losing your connection to truth, to love, and to your source. Buddhist language often frames it differently, saying suffering comes from the illusion of forgetting one's true nature. The Sufis say the ego is a cage where the soul sleeps. Different metaphors, but they all point in the same direction. The problem is that you do have a soul. The problem is that you identify with something else. You think you are your body. You think you are your thoughts. You think you are your memories and your personal history. But you are not your body, not your thoughts, not your story. You are something much larger, something that can observe all of that. Most people live on autopilot, running on inherited scripts and old programs, wasting energy on things that don't inspire them. They spend their days fighting, resenting, reacting, and fearing change. This survival mode steals your energy, and when you're completely drained, you can't hear what's real inside you. So how does the soul fall asleep? Think about a child. A child is born with a clean consciousness. A child doesn't need to prove who they are. They simply exist. But then the conditioning begins. Be this, don't be that. This is good. This is shameful. You are only loved when you meet our expectations. We're trained to worship the mind, to chase approval from others, to ignore our own feelings, and to suppress our intuition. We learn to endure, to push through, to earn, to perform. And slowly, bit by bit, the ego gets installed. The ego is that voice inside that says, you are your fears. Your fears protect you. Without them, you will die. It tells you, you are your achievements. Your value is based on your grades, your job title, your possessions. It convinces you, you are your mistakes. You are your wounds. You are your disappointments, in esoteric language. This is how people sell their soul. They don't literally sell it to some entity in a dark alley. They lose contact with their source, abandoning their real self in exchange for what they think is safety, status, and survival. The more a person lives in fear, greed, and self-deception, the deeper the soul sleeps, and the more their suffering multiplies. But the soul doesn't disappear. It just sleeps. And the real question becomes, can you wake it up? This is where the map you were never given becomes essential. It has 3 key points. First, there's the absolute, the infinite source, the origin, the field of pure potential that exists behind everything. Second, there's the soul, the traveler, your unique, individual expression, moving through experience. And third, there's the spirit. This is the missing link for many people. The spirit is the guiding force. It's what pulls you toward truth, toward your life's tasks, toward your destiny, toward yourself. The spirit is the current of life that gently nudges you back into alignment when you've gone astray. Most people have felt this, even if they don't use the word spirit. You stand before an important decision, a fork in the road, and something quiet inside you just says, yes, this is the way. That feeling of rightness, that deep inner knowing, that's spirit. So how do you tell the difference between soul and spirit and the noisy ego? The ego is loud. The ego pressures you. It scares you. It demands proof and tells you you're not enough. The soul, on the other hand, is calm. It doesn't force anything. It signals through feeling, through the heart, not through the noise in your head. Here's a key indicator to help you tell them apart. Interest. When you feel a real, alive, clean, and curious interest in something, it's often a sign that you're moving with your souls. When everything feels dead, heavy, and boring, it's usually because you're stuck in the ego's survival programming. The soul also speaks through moments that bypass logic. Think about standing in nature at sunset and a sudden wave of tenderness washes over you, or listening to a piece of music that brings tears to your eyes for no reason you can explain, or meeting someone and feeling like you've known them forever. These are whispers from the soul, and then the mind interrupts. Be realistic. That's stupid. You should be doing something more useful. That's the ego defending its cage. Let's try a direct practice right now. Wherever you are, just sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Feel your breath moving in and out of your body. Take a slow inhale and a long, complete exhale. Now, I want you to ask yourself a question. Who is observing all of this? Not the thoughts. They just come and go like clouds. Not the body. It's always changing. Not the emotions. They rise and dissolve. But there is something that remains. The observer. That pure awareness is the doorway back to what you truly are. And once you remember that, even just for a moment, fear begins to lose its power. You're not the story. You're the one who hears it. If this resonated, feel free to subscribe for more. Here, an uncomfortable idea. What if the entire system we live in needs you to be afraid? I mean, really, think about it. If you knew deep in your bones that you were eternal, you would become completely ungovernable. This is the central claim we're exploring today. The fear of death is the ultimate leverage. When you believe this is your one and only life, the terror of losing it shapes every single decision you make. That fear makes you accept exploitation just to survive. It pushes you to take on crushing debt. It forces you to overwork, to compromise your values, to obey rules that don't make sense. And this isn't some grand conspiracy theory. It's just a structure with built-in incentives. The system rewards fear. It weaponizes scarcity. It manufactures insecurity on an industrial scale. Think about it. Our society throws away mountains of food and goods, yet millions still suffer. Why? Because resources are managed for control, not for human thriving. We see the same patterns repeating over and over. Crises are engineered. Inflation erases a lifetime of effort. Wars are used to reset economies and consolidate power. Each new generation is forced to start over from scratch, running on the same hamster wheel. And now, with the rise of digital money and new forms of dependency, the anxiety is only getting more intense. So, the real question is this: who benefits when you believe that darkness and nothingness are all that come after death? Because that belief keeps you frightened, obedient, and so busy just trying to stay afloat that you never have time to look up and question the game itself. Now, let's flip the script. What happens when you genuinely start to believe in the soul and reincarnation? The text makes a very clear claim. A person who truly embraces this perspective fears death less. And when that deep existential fear collapses, the control mechanisms of the system start to weaken. Suddenly, politics can't manipulate you as easily through threats of loss or harm. Religions lose their monopoly on salvation. They can't hold the keys to the afterlife over your head as leverage. Corporations find it much harder to hook your identity to endless consumption, because you realize your worth isn't defined by what you own. A person who believes they have many lives begins to live this one consciously. They start looking for their own unique path, not the pre-written script assigned to them by their family, their culture, or their fears. They understand that making mistakes is part of the learning process, not a final judgment. Life transforms from a one-shot sentence into a grand, cosmic classroom. They stop performing for the approval of others and start aligning with their own inner truth. And that, right there, is incredibly dangerous to a system that is built on a foundation of fear and scarcity. A person who is not afraid is a person who cannot be easily controlled. They think for themselves. They question authority. They prioritize long-term growth over short-term gratification. They see through the illusion of manufactured emergencies and the constant drumbeat of panic in the news. They might choose a career based on purpose instead of just a paycheck. They might value community and connection over competition and status. They might decide to live more simply, freeing themselves from the chains of consumer debt. Imagine a world where more and more people started living this way. The entire power dynamic would shift. The frantic energy of the rat race would calm down. The focus would move from accumulating to contributing, from taking to giving, from fear to love. The systems that profit from our anxiety would begin to crumble, not because of a violent revolution, but because people would simply stop playing their game. This shift in perspective isn't about escaping reality. It's about engaging with it on a much deeper, more meaningful level. It's about realizing that this life is a single, precious chapter in a much larger story. And when you know there are more chapters to come, you can write this one with courage, with purpose, and with a profound sense of freedom. So what do you do with all of this? Not as a cool theory to think about, but as a practical way to live your life, starting right now. Here's the challenge. Most people aren't stuck because they lack information. You probably already know you should change. You know you should eat better, exercise, meditate, spend less time scrolling. The problem isn't a lack of knowledge. The problem is that you've lost contact with yourself. You have no energy, no clarity. You procrastinate on the very things that would save you. You're living in a loop, repeating the same patterns day after day, year after year, feeling more and more drained. The proposed solution isn't more information. It's a reboot, a structured transformation. This isn't about adding some fluffy spirituality for decoration, or using meditation as another form of escapism to avoid your problems. This is about deep integration. It's about inner growth that actually increases your vital energy, strengthens your will, and builds your confidence from the ground up. The goal is to empower you so you can create more real value in the world, so you can build authentic relationships based on trust and mutual respect, and so you can receive real rewards for your contributions. Gratitude, love, and yes, even money. Because why shouldn't you? There's nothing unspiritual about being rewarded for the value you create. When you become more aligned, more alive, more whole, life responds. The universe isn't punishing you. It's mirroring your internal state. When you operate from a place of lack, fear, and fragmentation, you attract more of the same. But when you start operating from a place of wholeness, purpose, and inner power, you begin to attract opportunities, connections, and abundance. This reboot is about clearing out the internal malware that's been slowing you down. It's about healing the old wounds that drain your energy. It's about silencing the inner critic that tells you you're not good enough. It's a process of becoming so aligned with your true self that your actions become effortless and effective. You stop fighting against the current of your own life and start flowing with it, creating positive change for yourself and for those around you. In the end, it all simplifies down to one daily skill: learning to hear the quiet voice of your soul again. It's a battle between two forces within you, the ego and the soul. The ego screams, the soul whispers. The ego pushes you with fear, anxiety, and a constant sense of urgency. It says, hurry up, you're falling behind. Do more, be more. The soul guides you with a sense of calm, clarity, and deep knowing. It says, be still, all is well. Trust the process. The ego tells you, you have to prove yourself to everyone, or you'll be nothing. Your worth depends on your achievements, your status, your followers. It's a relentless taskmaster that is never satisfied. The soul simply says, "Come home. You are already whole. You are already worthy." You don't need to prove anything. It's a gentle invitation back to your true nature. If you ever want the cleanest, simplest diagnostic tool to figure out which voice you're listening to, just ask yourself this: where is there living interest? Where do I feel a sense of genuine aliveness? Where does my curiosity naturally flow without force or effort? That feeling of quiet, joyful engagement is often your compass. It's the soul pointing the way. The ego is obsessed with outcomes, with winning and losing, with being right. The soul is interested in the process, in the learning, in the experience itself. The ego lives in the past and the future, regretting what was and fearing what might be. The soul lives fully in the present moment, the only place where life truly exists. The soul is not dead. It's not gone. For most of us, it's just asleep, buried under layers of conditioning, fear, and noise. And the most incredible part is this: the moment you start remembering, the moment you begin to listen to that whisper, the entire story of your life begins to change. Not after you die, not in some distant future. Today, in this very moment. If this resonated, follow for more. If you're still here, watching my videos, I want to say something simple. Thank you. In a world of endless noise and distractions, the fact that you choose to spend your time here means more than you can imagine. It means you're one of those rare people who wants to go deeper, question reality, and look inside yourself, not just outside. I'm honestly happy that there are people who share these interests, these questions, this search for meaning. So if you feel this space resonates with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need it. Your support helps this content reach more people who are also quietly searching. Thank you for being here, really.